Welcome to Swift Chat, the essential podcast for electrical retailers in the UK. I'm Stuart, and today we're joined by Anthony Sands, Joint Managing Director at Swift. Our focus, the imminent changes to the regulations on waste electricals, officially known as the WEEE regulations. We're going to be finding out what the impact is on retailers selling electrical appliances and consumers. Anthony, it's critical to get your perspective on these developments and discuss Swift's approach to the changes.
Really simple. Okay, well, let's start off understanding what WEEE stands for. So it's Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment. And the objective of the regulations that started in 2006 was to stop electrical items ending up in landfill. It also had an added benefit that electrical items often contain hazardous substances, and by recycling them properly, it prevented those hazardous substances from escaping into the environment.
So these have been around for almost 20 years now.
Absolutely.
Why are we now looking at changes, and what are these changes?
I think the big problem with the WEEE regulations is that the collection rates have stagnated. And what's happened is that since 2006, we've seen a steady growth of WEEE being collected and treated properly. But over the last 5 or 6 years, it's plateaued. And the reason why it's plateaued is that the points where WEEE is collected, whether that be from the council's waste sites where it's bulked up or retailer collections, have pretty much reached a level of saturation. And the challenge that they've got, there's an indelicate expression within the WEEE regulations, which is WEEE leakage. And what's happening is that where we have a problem in the UK is appliances and electrical items left on the doorstep that then aren't captured by responsible businesses, or electrical items that are being put in the waste bin, your normal general waste bin. And the government know this is happening. And the reason why is everybody knows it's happening. How many times you drive down the street and you see a fridge or a washing machine sat on the end of the drive? So that's the first thing they know. And that, let's be really clear about it, that is not good recycling. They also know the fact is that in incinerators, where they basically burn refuse, often in the bottom ash, there are many motors. Okay, and they find motors and things like that could only have come out of small electrical items. So they know it's ending up in incineration, okay, which is wrong and bad for the environment. And we also know it's sitting on people's doorsteps. So the big part of the WEEE regulations moving forward is how do they make sure the general public stop putting it in the waste bin, or the general public stop putting their electrical items at the end of the street?
So to sum it up, this is basically let's recycle more and recycle properly.
Absolutely. And the point is that with the WEEE regulations, the cost of doing it, because let's be really clear about it, you will hear lots of press about the fact is that there is lots of precious metals and things like that within WEEE, really important that we capture that, because the Earth's resources are only finite. So that's the first important thing. We also have got hazardous pollutants in electrical items. We need to capture that. And I think that what we have to do is drive the recycling of electrical items down responsible routes. So what they're doing with it, with the WEEE regulations, is that they make the person that made the item, the producer of the item, pay for it. So it's a little bit like the polluter pays philosophy. If you put bad stuff into an item, at some point later at end of life, you need to have to fund the basically getting the bad stuff back out.
So there are some changes coming along. What are these changes, and how are they going to impact on your customers, the people that you work with, and in fact, impact on Swift?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So the point is that at this present moment, the general public are responsible for taking their electrical items to the council waste site. Okay. And there have been many studies, okay, and people call it the drawer of doom, okay, and I know that anybody that's listening to this will have a drawer full of electrical items and wires and all of those other bits and pieces, and that's basically valuable resource, and those items will need to be recycled. And at some point, that drawer will be emptied, and we have to make sure that that drawer is emptied in a responsible place, okay? But it's the general public that needs to basically empty out of the drawer, and they have to then take it to the waste tip. Or they fund the cost of collection by a retailer to take it back to their premises, and then the manufacturer, the producer, then will pick up the cost from there to basically get it recycled. What government are looking at, okay, is moving the responsibility to the consumer's doorstep for the producer. And what this means intrinsically is that the cost of taking it to the waste site now becomes the responsibility of the manufacturer, going back to that polluter pays responsibility. So within the new set of regulations, consumers will not be charged for collecting it, and it will be the responsibility of manufacturers to collect from the consumer's doorstep and fund that cost. Now, one of the big issues at the moment is the fact that this can be done either in a very cost effective way or could be very expensive. And let's be really clear about it. Nobody is going to vote for more cost in their business. So I think you've got at the moment this major conflict between manufacturers, okay, that don't want unreasonable costs and high costs, and government that have got a set of regulations that have stagnated. We've got electrical items that are being incinerated or basically being recycled incorrectly, and therefore there's got to be, something's got to be done. And at this present moment, we've got this conflict of doing right versus the economic reasons around it. And we're going through this consultation process with governments at the moment just to find an amicable solution. And there will be one. And the point about it is that we have to basically do this because it's the right thing for the environment, and it will happen in the future at some point. I just think the fact is that what we've got to do is we've got to get everybody on board and accept that it needs to be done, and then collectively find a cost-effective way of doing it. And I think that this is where manufacturers, people like Swift, we need to basically work with our customers. So, let's be really clear about it. Everybody's getting deliveries, whether that be in the home, whether that be to the retail store. You're getting deliveries from manufacturers. What we need to do is accept the fact that when we're there, we need to bring some stuff back. And if we do that, what will happen is that will become a much more cost-effective way of bringing the products back into a bulked up area and sort it out.
So I sell appliances
Yeah.
on the high street.
Yes.
How's that going to impact me? Will I have to go and collect them? What will my customers have to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the important thing here is that at this present moment, most retailers will charge a fee to collect a recycled item and take it back to their depot. I suspect with the new regulations, they will not be allowed to do that. And studies have shown that the biggest barrier for a consumer not using the retailer collection service to take an old item away is the cost. Now, one of the things that actually don't factor into their reasoning for doing this is that they believe they can take it to the tip. But let's be really clear about it. That costs money. Putting an item in the back of your car and sitting in a queue waiting at your household wage site will cost money. It might not be the typical £25 that everybody's being charged, but I suspect it's not far off. And then by the time you factored in the damage to the trim to your vehicle, and if anybody's tried to lift a 65-kilo washing machine to the back of a car, it's not easy. And I suspect what happens is the intent for the consumer is really good. They say they're going to take it to the tip. They try and put it in the back of the car and think, whoa, that's way too heavy. Okay, I'm going to damage my car. And they just think by leaving it at the end of the street, somebody will take it away. That is wrong. That is bad. Okay. And that should not happen, because what invariably happens is that when it comes to being recycled, unscrupulous recyclers will just steal the good bits off it, the valuable bits off it, and leave the bad and hazardous components for somebody else to deal with. And therefore that's wrong. I think also as well, really, really important, we have to think about reuse. So a lot of appliances are still working or need minor repairs to basically give them an extra lease of life. And as soon as you leave it outside and as soon as it gets damaged, the idea of reuse disappears. So I think that there's no getting away from it. It's the right thing to do. We just need to go on this journey to make sure that people find a sensible, cost-effective way of doing it.
So at the moment, as it stands, appliance retailers may not be able to charge,
Yeah,
take
absolutely.
these things away.
Yeah.
So potentially there'll be a bit of a concern about, well, how do we pick these things up? Where's that cost going to sit? How do I
Absolutely.
store it? All those questions, they're going to start asking those questions.
And they should be asking those questions, because let's be really clear about it. They'll still be able to charge to disconnect the item and bring it to the doorstep. The bit that they won't be able to charge for, I suspect, will be the journey from the doorstep back to their depot or their warehouse or their shop. But actually, is that a real cost? And then what's really important is that the next part of it is that we've now got retailers with lots of WEEE sitting at their premises. They need to basically have a regular collection service to take the WEEE away. And it can't cost them money, because it's not their responsibility to dispose of it. In fact, they shouldn't be having to pay for the cost now, because it's a producer responsibility to recycle the WEEE. So any retailer out there that's having to pay for disposal of the WEEE shouldn't be.
You're saying that sits with the manufacturer at the moment?
Absolutely. Now, currently, they shouldn't do that. And it's a nonsense that manufacturers would expect the retailer to fund the disposal. So the point in this is the issue actually isn't the cost of disposal. I think the biggest issue is making sure that the retailer have got capacity in their warehouse to hold the products. Often independent retailers have a small and finite storage capacity, which means that they're not going to be able to store items for a very long period of time. And we need to make sure, and we need to be arguing and pushing for regular collections to make sure that the retailers, who are going to do a really, really good job, in fact, they are the people that are going to make these regulations work for large items, and allow government to be successful and achieve their targets, then they've got to be supported. So very much, I would be arguing that they need the support, and they accept their responsibility, which is while you're there, can you pick something up and bring it back to your shop? But please, can you make sure that it's collected very quickly, because I haven't got much space.
So it sounds to me like these retailers are pretty critical to this whole thing.
Absolutely. So what the Swift is doing is we're telling everybody about this. We think it's so important in our position as a supplier to retailers that we highlight to them the challenges that they're going to be faced. And I think that the important thing about this is that often with business, if you've got a view of what's going to happen, you can then future-proof your business and make sure that you can allow for these changes. And as long as this doesn't happen as a surprise, you won't be affected by it. And I think this is also really important. If everybody's affected in exactly the same way, then in theory, materially, it doesn't really make any difference. We all live, selling appliances. If there's a change in currency fluctuations, everybody has the same impact on cost. So all prices will go, so it's that analogy, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think this is where it is really important to consider that you have to be aware of what's going to happen to make sure that you can cope with that rising tide.
Excellent, Anthony. So we'll be hearing more from you in terms of what's happening. I'm sure you've got your ear to the ground on this, so all your customers will be keen to hear what the next steps are. Thanks very much today, Anthony, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Stuart. Nice talking to you.
Anthony, your insights have not only clarified the path ahead, but also highlighted Swift's commitment to leading the charge in adapting to these WEEE regulation changes. To our audience, thanks for tuning into Swift Chat. The journey towards compliance and sustainability is a collective effort, and it's conversations like these that pave the way forward for a successful transition. Let's keep the dialogue going and stay informed. So until next time, look out on our social media channels for more Swift Chat podcasts. Thank you.